Traster. Good morning, Tina. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Rockland County. How is everybody over there?
We're doing pretty well
we're
here.
doing pretty good.
Had some internet glitches earlier this morning, but everything seems to be running smoothly. I'm knocking on all the wood in the studio right now, making sure that stays that way. But right now, how's everything in terms of Rockland business?
Well, like you, we're multitasking. Last week was a busy week. Amongst things we've reported on recently, they include Starbucks employees at the Nanuet location attempting to unionize. We'll talk about that. We reported that Chick-fil-A is coming to Rockland, but not. Apparently its first sighting is not going to be in Nanuet, which is, of course, is still on the books, still being talked about, but rather at the stadium, the Clover Stadium, the former Boulder Stadium. They are going to have a concession there that will open up in May. Interesting, because the company's across-the-board policy is to stay closed on Sundays. They will not be open on Sundays, but they are the new concessionaire for the season. And, I'd say both of those two stories, both the Starbucks and the Chick-fil-A story on social media, both spurred a lot of discussion. The Starbucks, let's talk about that first. So employees at the location in Nanuet, along with 3 other Starbucks throughout New York, in Long Island, Queens, and Brooklyn, they filed petitions to the National Labor Relations Board, which attempting to affiliate with the Service Employees International Union, and we spoke to somebody from the Nanuet location who said that, they said she loves Starbucks, everyone loves Starbucks, they love working for the company, but they want it to be a fair workplace.
Woo! Let's go.
If you tracked social media and the posting of this story through the course of last week, you would see that the idea, I guess, of privatized unions is a very, like everything else in this country, a very divisive, I will even say explosive issue, and ignited a lot of back and forth, not always polite, on social media.
That's safe to say. We saw a similar situation go down with that Amazon warehouse on Long Island, I believe it was, wasn't it? That the one that just recently unionized?
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, there are, let's pull the camera back out and look at this with a wider lens. There is more movement, more effort for private organizations, for their employees to band together and try to unionize. The person who I spoke to, who's over at the Starbucks in Nanuet, she's a shift supervisor. Some of the things that she talked about, as well as some of the things that across the board for all of these filings, is that they feel that the employees are underpaid, short-staffed, and overlooked, that they want a stronger voice. I think that the pandemic also, as in just about every realm across the board, it crystallized certain issues. For example, when people are calling in sick and these people have to cover their shifts, their contention is that they have to work, harder. They have to do more work with fewer people. I guess they're looking for compensation for that. The blowback that you see, even from Howard Schultz, who is now once again the CEO of back in place in his position as CEO of Starbucks.
Did he leave?
Yeah, he left briefly, or had stepped down to a lesser role. He said, my job in coming back to Starbucks is to ensure the fact that we reimagine a new Starbucks with our partners at the center of it, as a pro-partner company, as a company that does not need someone in between us and our people.
The common excuse.
The common, positioning, I suppose, which is to say, let me throw some perks at you. Let's work this out. We don't need a union.
But our close relationship, our one-on-one relationship with our workers.
Yes, it's a double speech.
It's the same. It's the same stuff that we saw. Like I'm referring to this incident. This story from the Long Island one, that when Amazon obviously came out and was like, well, if you unionize, it takes away our personal relationship with you. We can't have that one-on-one dialogue. We don't need this middleman. Come on, man. We can't. We can't. You can't help us help you. Mm-hmm. You see, this is all reflected on you. It's going to be bad for you at the end of the day, which is, I'm not shocked that Starbucks is taking a similar stance. Do you know why Schultz, you said his name was, stepped away?
Howard Schultz, yeah.
Do we know why he stepped away originally?
I'm not. I think that Starbucks was having some problems, and I think that they've reorganized. Mm-hmm. I know that they shut down a whole lot of locations. But for example, the shift supervisor mentioned how, in order for them to maintain benefits, like health benefits, and in her case, college program benefits, mm-hmm. the shifts have to be minimum 20 hours per week. And she was mentioning how recently, in the month of March, their hours were cut. She said for the moment it didn't affect the benefits as far as she knew, but that this kind of instability, was not good for the employees. And she said, quote, this instability is partly why, well, actually it's not a quote, it's paraphrased, is that 76% of the Starbucks employees at the Nanuet location are seeking to unionize. That's what she said. So
that is a big majority. Now that was cut. That wasn't a request, right? For the cut hours. That just came from up top, I suppose.
Yeah, of course. That's the thing. Is I guess these companies they have a culture. I mean, this woman, I got the feeling that she really loves where she works, and she loves the culture of the place, and she's that location. She told me they employ about 21 people. And I think that companies like that, they make it pretty cool, or they do have their perks. But I think as soon as employees start to see that there's instability and that they can't count on that, coupled with sort of a national wave to do this, they've gotten on board. So here's what we know. Nationally, 225 locations have either filed unionized, rejected a union in their voting, or plan to file. In New York, 9 locations have unionized, 6 have filed, another 4 plan to file, and that's on top of the 4 that I mentioned.
Wow.
And to date, 22 elections have been conducted, resulting in 20 union victories, 2 challenged elections. And there are 9,000 Starbucks nationwide. So it's still sort of an infant movement, but we're seeing this in other companies too, like you mentioned, Amazon.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said I mentioned Amazon, and we've been seeing a lot of tactics used by them. They were hanging, posters in the warehouses to with links and QR codes to websites to tell you how awful and terrible unionizing is. Have we seen anything other than quotes from the company itself in terms of the Starbucks situation? Anything that you're seeing that's a further effort to stop this unionization from happening? Maybe something similar, maybe something different, something other than just words to try and stop this union vote?
Well, if there's muscle flexing behind the scenes, I'm not sure about that. But you have to remember that these locations are scattered throughout. They're relatively small in terms of the number of employees. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to mention that the Starbucks across the street at the shops at Nanuet has closed. Interesting. And we do have in the county, I think I added it up, I think there are about 7 Starbucks locations. One of them is inside of a Target in Spring Valley. Mm-hmm. Another is at the New York State Thruway at Spokesburg Plaza North. So do the Starbucks employees let's say just amongst Rockland, speak to one another? It's a good question. I think this is more of a localized. I think that they're pulling their inspiration from what they're seeing across the Starbucks nationally and here in New York. But I think that the energy and movement that it takes to actually file is probably a location by location scenario.
So, do you think that the Starbucks in the county should form the union together?
You mean like all of the Starbucks?
Right.
Well, I don't quite know how that would work, but probably if there was more, I think probably if there was more discussion amongst all of the Starbucks in the county, all the employees, they would probably gain some power out of that.
Although you did say
fair.
we're losing locations, right?
Well, yeah. Well. Let's say so. We lost the shops at Nanuet, but there is that old house on Route 304 where Starbucks is slated to come. That's been in the book. So that's been on the books for more than 2 years. So yeah, but in other words, to form the union, it has to be location based. Would they energize each other if they were speaking to each other? Yes, but they have to form a union based on their individual location.
That is an interesting strategy, though, to sort of correlate a big, union vote. I mean, even though it has to be location-based, to sort of make them all sort of gung-ho on forming the union at each individual location sort of increases the power. It's interesting that, maybe that's why they're closing down all the locations to sort of depower, to quell the power that the locations would have if they wanted to do something like that. I think that's a little too presumptuous, but who knows?
I think with 9,000 Starbucks nationwide, they're pretty. We're still going to see a lot of Starbucks on corners on a lot of main streets. But whether or not this moves to a union is going to be. It's just interesting because it's the tip of the iceberg, and it's not specific to Starbucks. There are companies all across the corporate spectrum where you're seeing these initiations, for example, in category-wise, we're seeing I don't know that we have any here, but we're seeing this in meat packing plants and grocery stores and even on farms. And this is where I suppose employees have had a struggle, keeping up with wages and what they, I guess, consider to be fair wages. And again, I think the pandemic has ripped open everything, as we know, and this is just another, rip that has shown like where the weaknesses are. And I guess it's a time where people feel energized. So we'll see how this goes. We'll follow this story because it's interesting. I guess I shouldn't say I was surprised, but there was certainly a lot of dialogue about this through the course of last week. Of course.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, that now seems to be the time that's sort of energizing these movements or for advocation on workers' behalfs when it comes to these mega corporations. It's interesting. Do you think the pandemic helped I know we don't have a lot of time, but do you think the pandemic helped expedite these scenarios here? Perhaps?
Yeah. The pandemic has been like the giant microscope. It's put everything that was small and festering and has become enlarged and exaggerated and much more visible than it was before.
Are you talking about just the workplace or life in general?
Everything. Well, we're talking about the workplace here, but I'm talking about everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's shown a light on just how everything works and what doesn't work, and what we're prepared to do about it.
Yeah, I mean, working conditions were one of the major things we were always talking about. I mean, like I wasn't here during the majority of the pandemic, but I saw it on news networks almost everywhere. Either reports of this or that happening in one warehouse or industry plant or factory. It was one thing or another. So that was a major concern. So I just wanted to ask your opinion opine on that because I just thought of that might be what's causing all of this. Maybe a positive outcome from such a horrible situation that we were, faced with over the better part of 2 years, unfortunately.
Well, we've seen. I mean, obviously, we've seen this most intensely across the healthcare industry and across the service industry.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much, Tina Traster from the Rockland County Business Journal, for joining us as you do every Monday at this time. If you want more information on Rockland County Business, you could, of course, visit their website. That's rcbizjournal.com. Or you can go to their Facebook page, the Rockland County Business Journal. And thank you so much. Like I said, Tina, we will talk to you next week. Have a good week.
Yeah, have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And right now, we're going to cut to a couple commercials. We got to thank our